We'll begin the meeting with a Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And we'll begin the meeting with a moment of silence. I'd like to announce that the meeting is being recorded and televised by the local cable company. And the first item on the agenda is the reorganization of the Board of Selectmen. So at this time, we pass the gavel down to Lincoln to take care of this part of the meeting.
I could entertain motions for chair.
Yes, I'd like the motion Kyle Kowalski as chair.
I'll second that.
Are there any other motions, any other nominations for chair of the Board of Selectmen? Okay, close the nominations. Any discussion? All right, I think move to a vote. Mr. Bezanson?
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
And the gavel back. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, guys, for your vote of confidence. Hopefully, we will have a different year this year than we did last year, which was a year to match all years, probably.
Amen.
The next item on the agenda is to call for nominations for vice chair.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to nominate Mr. Salvucci for vice chair.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Are there any other nominations? Okay, hearing none, we'll close nominations and consider that a unanimous vote. I don't think we need to vote, to do a voice vote.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes?
Yes.
Yes.
Well, we will anyway. Next item on the agenda is to accept nominations for clerk.
I'll nominate Brian Bezanson.
I'll second that.
Moved and seconded. Any other nominations? Okay, hearing none, we'll close nominations and we'll vote. Brian, would you like to vote for yourself?
Sure, why not? Yes.
Dan?
Yes.
Yes, I'll vote yes.
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 Thank you, John.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Okay, approval of bill and payroll warrants. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Is there any discussion? Okay, we don't need a voice vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And a motion to accept correspondence in the read file. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Next item on the agenda is something that hasn't been on the agenda for a long time because of the remote meetings we've been having, the public forum. Is there anyone here who would like to speak about something that's not on the agenda? And I will let you do that now, but then we're going to have a discussion about that in a few seconds. Welcome back.
Just a quick question. Just looking for an update on the strategic plan, or any progress on the strategic plan.
On what? I'm sorry.
The strategic plan. Sorry.
The strategic plan. Lincoln.
Yeah.
Yes, recently had a conversation with our consultant on that, and she's moving towards completion. I would expect completion certainly by the mid-July, probably.
Awesome. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. That was a question I was going to ask tonight myself, but thank you for bringing it up. About public forum, I've been doing some thinking about it, and I usually get in trouble when I do some thinking. And I passed by, I was talking to both Justin and Randy about it before this meeting. Didn't get anywhere. But I'm wondering if and maybe Peter could help me out. I wonder if the public forum is in the spirit of what the open meeting really is. Because what we basically say, and you know, what we basically say is there anybody who would like to speak on something that's not on the agenda? And then we get some stuff that's not on the agenda, and we talk about it. You're not hearing me?
He just wanted to get on camera.
So, The idea of having an agenda for a meeting, as far as the open meeting law is concerned, I always thought was to let the public know what we were going to be talking about at a particular meeting. Give them the opportunity to be here and to voice their concerns or their impressions. The open forum, where you open it up to anybody to just throw something out there without time for anybody to become prepared or to be aware that it was going to be talked about, seems to go against that. Does that make sense, Peter? Be my guest.
The open meeting law doesn't require a public forum at meetings.
It does or it doesn't?
It does not.
Right.
It's something that public bodies often elect to do, to invite members of the public to speak on matters, bring them to the attention of the board. But it is at your option. So, and truly it's at the chair's option unless it's adopted as a policy that it's required for every regular meeting or every meeting period. So, I think that, your thoughts in terms of whether or not you're prepared or not to discuss something are appropriate, because the board shouldn't be discussing something that's not on the agenda. But at the same time, you can just take something under advisement, put it on a future agenda,
Right.
that would be the appropriate way to handle something like that.
Thank you, Peter. What I was thinking also is that, and I know that you've done this before, you've had something that was on your mind, and you've sent an email, and we'll read the email, and we will know what's going to be discussed, because we know it 3 days in advance. We know it when the agenda goes out. Perhaps that's something that could be encouraged, that if someone would like to speak to something that is at a certain meeting, like the meeting in 3 days or whatever, they send a note to us, send a note to the chair, and then we can get it on the agenda, and we'll have an idea what's going to happen. But I don't want to make this a big deal right now. If the board members could think about this for a couple of weeks between now and the next meeting, and we may go back to what we always did, or we may change it up a little bit, just so that the public can be more informed about what we're going to be discussing each week. It's a thought I had. And now, and Randy mentioned something to me before the meeting. I'm going to turn it over to him right now. Something that's really significant and very important, and it's not on the agenda.
I just want to give a good mention to a distinguished employee here in town. After 34 years of service, crossing guard Dorothy Doey Saunders Wednesday will be having her manning their post for the last time. And I think that's quite an accomplishment, and as many of us who grew up here know, the crossing guards, you get awfully friendly with them in the morning, and they become a part of your life for that year or a couple years while you're at that school. So I think 34 years in any job should be commended, and I just wanted to mention tonight Dorothy Doey Saunders.
Okay, thank you, Randy. Think of all the children that she shepherded across the street.
Right.
On those 34 years. Before we do have a scheduled hearing at 7:30, but before that, let's get some business done. The town administrator's report, Lincoln.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Briefly on a few items, I know we've spoken about this before in meetings, and I know the board was generally aware of the project before my arrival actually here in Whitman. But this summer, the contract's been finalized for the Complete Streets grant project from the state for the reconfiguration of the Park Avenue and Essex Street intersection. Folks have seen the barrels there, and that project is going to commence shortly, and heard from Superintendent Martin that it should be complete by August 31st. The other thing, just on a quick couple notes, there's something that just came to my attention today. It was the Dyer Memorial Library, which I think most folks are familiar with, which has a general gambit of preserving the history of Abington, and of course Whitman used to be part of Abington, is having a special Civil War ceremony. The request came in to have a temporary lending of our book, which is a Grand Army of the Republic personal war sketches, personal stories of some of our Civil War veterans in Whitman, and have that book be reunited with that same book in Abington, especially since Whitman used to be part of Abington. So the Historical Commission's aware of it, and that book is going over there for that short-term loan on this Friday. There's going to be a special event to commemorate that from 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. at the Dyer Library that the public and everyone is welcome to attend. So just want to make sure folks knew that. It's certainly interesting. And there's also in combination with that, the New England Historic Genealogical Society is offering to, on a free basis, do a digital scan of this, what's apparently the only copy in existence of this. So those two loans will be going on, the second to the Genealogical Society, so we can have that free scanned and be more widely available. Just briefly, there's other items that just recently came up, especially in light of the governor's lifting of coronavirus COVID-19 restrictions. Been speaking with Recreation Commission member Michelle Lamatina and also the Recreation Commission director, the Recreation Director Kathleen Woodward, on putting some plans together for July 4th event. Mrs. Lamatina is really taking the lead on that, but it does look like there will be a July 4th event. I'm working with her to make sure we have funding for that, because when the budget was being put together, the traditional relatively nominal appropriation for the July 4th event was not included in the budget because we didn't think we'd be able to do it this year. However, through some fundraising and, if necessary, finding some funds elsewhere, I do think we'll be able to have a July 4th event, which will be great. And then just one other item that's just come up regarding July 4th, briefly, the Senior Center and the Veterans Agent are working together to encourage residents to decorate their doors in recognition of July 4th and in recognition of the service of veterans to the town, to our country. So that is being encouraged from July 1st through July 5th. And they can also contact the Council on Aging or the Veterans Agent if one would like to volunteer to decorate the door of a veteran or senior who's not able to decorate their own door. So that, I think, it wraps up the main items. Obviously, town meeting coming to a conclusion is the main item, but we all know that. So thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you, Lincoln. The next item, and I think we can get a few more items in. The next item on the agenda is to make the fiscal year 22 annual appointments. You have a list of them in your package. They go from the affirmative action representative through 4 pages down to the crossing guards and special police officers and matron. Someone like to make a motion to make those appointments?
Second.
Second, is there any discussion? Okay, all those in favor say yes?
Yes.
And the cards are in the office for you all to sign, if you haven't done so already. I'd like to announce some board and committee vacancies also at this time. And if you're interested in joining one of these boards or committees, just please contact the Selectmen's office. The AAA Advisory Committee needs an alternate delegate for the year 2022. The Board of Appeals needs an associate member for 2022. The Bylaw Study Committee has one vacancy in 2022. The Community Preservation Committee has 5 vacancies. Because it's a brand new enterprise. The Conservation Commission has a vacancy for 2022 and 2 alternate member vacancies, one for 2023 and one for 2024. Council on Aging has a vacancy for the 2024, or until 2024. The Economic Development Committee has a vacancy at large, 2023, and a vacancy on as a planning board rep, 2023. The Fair Housing Committee has a vacancy in 2022. Historical Commission has an associate member vacancy in 2022. Recreation Commission has a non-voting member vacancy 2022. And the Whitman Cultural Council has 3 vacancies, 2 with terms to 2024 and 1 to 2023. And Justin, do you want to say anything about the Community Preservation Committee?
Sure. I guess I should probably start by saying there are currently 9 vacancies, although I think 4 are at-large appointed by our board, and 5 appointed by each board as identified within the bylaw, as required by Mass General laws. But I'm very excited to see this finally get off the ground. It will be something in the neighborhood of $200,000 to $250,000 in community preservation funds available to spend next annual town meeting. And we need a committee to start putting it together. So if you're interested, please, for any of the 4 at-large seats, contact the town administrator or, I guess, Carl.
Or the Selectman's office?
Or the Selectman's office.
Yes. Someone will answer the phone. Next item on the agenda is to act on the request of Joel Thomas to be reappointed to the position of constable for a 3-year term through June 27th, 2024, subject to the receipt of an updated public official's bond. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Is there a second? Is there any discussion? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Act on the request of Charlene Conway for a special amusement live entertainment license on the premises located at 1055 Auburn Street, the Carousel Family Fun Center, on Saturday, June 26, 2021, from 10 p.m. to 1 a.m. for a private adult-only roller skating event. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second? Are there any questions or discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
And the last item under new business is to adopt the Purple Heart Community Proclamation. Do you want to speak about this, Lincoln?
Sure, I can, and actually this was brought to my attention by Selectman Evans, but which I know is certainly appreciated by myself and the Veterans Agent. The Purple Heart Proclamation that's before you is the first step in several to become an official community that recognizes, that is recognized as a Purple Heart community. The next step would, if approved by the Board of Selectmen, would be to collect personal stories of those who've received the Purple Heart who've been wounded in battle in defense of our country, and collecting those personal stories through an oral history project, which I think is very neat and exciting. There would also be the planned purchase of 9 signs on the major routes into town to signify that. That would cost about $540. The Veterans Agent is working on doing some fundraising for that. If conceivably the fundraising does not meet it, we could think about trying to find monies in the town's appropriation, but hopefully I know she's going to be working hard to work with local businesses and others to do that fundraising for those signs. And then she is planning a Purple Heart Recognition Month in September to further recognize this if adopted by the Board of Selectmen, and coming through and as part of this entire adoption of being a Purple Heart community.
Okay, thank you, Lincoln. We still have 10 minutes before the next item on the last item on the agenda, or the second to last item. The executive session is the last. Is meant to take place. I imagine you are here for the dog hearing. Is there anyone that you expected to come that isn't here? We could start now if that would be all right. Or Peter, do we have to wait until 7:30? Okay. Yeah, it is. Okay. Pardon? Take a 10-minute break. And those of you who are here for the hearing, we do need you to sign in to a sign-in sheet. And Lincoln, you have that?
I do.
Okay.
Yeah.
If you could go up to Lincoln at this end of the table, and you'll be asked to give your name and address and telephone number, etc. And we'll convene at 7:30.
You to sign in. Hi, how are you? Thank you.
6:30. So I'd like to call this hearing to order. This evening, the Whitman Board of Selectmen is holding a dog hearing as a result of a complaint on or about March 2nd, 2021, by Mr. and Mrs. Aylward, in accordance with Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 140, Section 157, and Article 27 of the Town of Whitman General Bylaws. The purpose of this hearing is to determine whether the dog, Loretta, owned by Casey Mahoney, is dangerous, is a nuisance, or is neither, and if any remedial action has to be taken because of whatever determination is made. A determination of the hearing outcome will be made in writing after the hearing has been conducted by the board. And what I expect to have happen tonight is we'll have a hearing, we'll hear from each side, we'll hear from our dog officer, and the board will have the opportunity to ask questions of people. And then the board will discuss what it thinks the determination should be. Within a week of this meeting, there'll be we will direct our attorney and our town administrator to write up a determination, write up what we decided tonight, and it will be announced publicly at a subsequent meeting, which is in 2 weeks. But you'll all get something in writing within a week of tonight. If everything goes the way I hope it goes, that we can finish this tonight. I could introduce myself to those of you who don't know me. My name is Carl Kowalski. I'm the chair of the Board of Selectmen, and I'll be presiding over the hearing. It's my duty to enforce the rules of the hearing. I'll also swear in all the witnesses wishing to speak. We'll all hear testimony for the purpose of gathering relevant facts, and we will make a determination concerning the complaint after the hearing is ended. And as I just said, the determination will be available in writing by a week from today, which will be the 15th, at the town administrator's office, and will also be mailed out to the involved parties, and also will be announced publicly at our next open meeting, which is on the 22nd of this month. People have all signed in. You all have signed in, and you've provided your name, address, email, and telephone number. All those wishing to speak must be sworn in by me. I've never done this before. This is cool. To all speakers, if you could, please stand up and raise your hand, raise your right hand, and state after me, quote, "I swear that the testimony I am about to give is the whole truth and nothing but the truth." Thank you. I'd like to acknowledge the following documents as part of the evidence in this matter. The complaint from Marie and Walter Aylward on or about March 2nd, 2021. And also, if I can find it. That was in March when the complaint was made. This is June. It's been some time. And there's a reason for that. There was an attempt at taking care of this issue without a formal hearing. And on the 9th of March, our ACO, our dog officer, came up with a solution. The town administrator spoke to the parties about the solution, and it appeared to be satisfactory. However, as is their right, on April 13th, Mr. and Mrs. Aylward wrote to the town administrator and said, "We've decided to pursue the dangerous dog hearing that was discussed with you. We truly believe this is truly the best way for us to follow through. Thank you in advance for your assistance." And it's signed by each of them. Ms. Mahoney and Mr. and Ms. Walter and Marie Aylward received on May 4th a certified notification of this hearing. And I have Animal Control Officer Joe Kenny's written report dated March 9th, and he'll be the first person to speak this evening, but I'd like to read his report first. This is the one that was fashioned on March 9th. After receiving, and you'll probably just be repeating some of this, but I just wanted to read what you wrote. After receiving a report of a dog bite on the 10th of February 2021 at 650 South Avenue, I was able to identify the dog that was involved as Loretta, a brindle and white terrier mix that lives at 50 Perry Avenue in Whitman. Loretta belongs to Casey Mahoney, and it gives her phone number. Loretta has not had any other incidents in town, and this was the first known case of aggression. After talking with Casey Mahoney, I found out that the dog was being walked by a dog walker at the time of the incident, in which case Loretta was on a leash and able to pull the walker to the fence of Wally Aylward at 650 South Avenue. Loretta was then able to bite his dog Buttercup through the fence, causing significant damage to the jaw of Buttercup. Due to the fact that this is a one-time incident and the owner was not walking the dog at the time, I recommended to Casey Mahoney that she change her walking route to avoid the section of South Avenue where Buttercup lives, and that when being walked, a cage muzzle be used to ensure that this cannot happen again. In addition, I also recommended that the dog not be walked by a dog walker and that an experienced person walks Loretta, and that was signed Joe Kenny. And so first up to speak would be Joe. Is there anything that you would like to add to that, Joe?
So, not really. In addition to that, I was out there on the same day, and there was significant damage caused to Buttercup. We haven't had any incidences with Loretta since then, and this was a first-time incident. Granted, it was significant damage, but it was like a dog-on-dog thing, and neither of the dogs were off-leash, so neither of them were charged with anything. They were both, one was in a fenced-in yard, and one was on leash being walked. It was definitely an unfortunate incident, but it was a dog-on-dog thing, so in a typical situation, we would just do a quarantine, and we followed those steps and went through it. Other than that, I usually recommend that in any of these cases to put minds at ease, make both sides feel safe, that people change the walking route. If you can avoid walking by a house that could potentially be a problem, that we avoid it. And under the circumstance where it wasn't actually the owner walking the dog, I think a lot of this situation had to do with the person handling the dog. Had this not happened to be, like, if it was their own dog, it might have been a very different scenario. They might have picked up signs on the dog differently. But I think the fact that the handler wasn't the owner of the dog has a big play in this situation. And that's why I recommended that they seek either a different dog walker or that they walk the dog on their own. But other than that, there's not too much to add. Are there any other questions?
Okay, yeah, each person will have roughly 5 minutes to speak, each person that speaks. And then after they speak, members of the board can ask questions if they would like. Would anyone like to ask anything of Joe?
Yeah, I would. Joe, a couple of questions. First of all, the size of the dog that bit the other dog, how big? I'm not a dog owner now, so what size?
So, the Allwoods dog was small. I don't know, maybe around 15 pounds. A small dog, Shih Tzu. So like lap dog. Lorenza is a pit bull, or terrier mix. I don't know exactly what she is, but she's a pit bull type dog.
Okay.
So she's average size, maybe around 45, 50 pounds.
Okay. The person that was walking the dog,
Yep.
was it an adult or was it a teenager? Was it a child?
It was a young adult.
It was an adult?
Yeah.
And did you see the adult?
I did not see the adult in question.
So you don't know whether or not this person was large enough to control the dog?
No.
Obviously not.
Yeah.
Second of all, the dogs that were fenced into their yard,
Yep.
they were smaller, right? What type of a fence was in the yard? Was it stockade?
So,
was
you know,
it chain link?
the fence going around the yard, I think, is like a 4-foot chain link fence.
So it was to the point where the dog's muzzle can
Yeah.
can go through the fence?
So in my personal experience, what I've found is that a lot of times when there's two dogs,
Yeah.
there's a dog on one side of the fence and it's barking through the fence at the other dog, which is normal because the dog's walking by their property. So I'm assuming that the smaller dog was barking through the fence and its nose was really close to the fence, and the larger dog either pushed the fence just enough that it could kind of get its mouth onto the nuzzle, and that's how the incident happened.
And in your report, the dogs that were behind the fence, were they on a chain? Or
They were
just
not on a chain, they were just in their fenced-in yard.
fenced-in area?
Yeah, but they were on their property.
Okay, yeah, that's
Yeah.
fine. Where the fence ended and the dog, where the dog was walking, did the dog that bit the other dogs go on the owner's property? Or was the fence right on the property
The
line?
fence is very close to the edge of the property. So the fence, I don't know that the dog would necessarily have to go onto the
So you're
property.
talking about
Yeah,
maybe-
we're talking about maybe where the edge of the fence is to like the road is probably less than 18 inches. To the sidewalk, I'm sorry, not
Okay,
road,
so
but
it's
sidewalk.
very
Yeah,
tight-
it's a very short distance that, yeah. It wasn't like the dog ran into the yard.
Right, okay.
And went into the yard. It happened right on the front yard, right next to the sidewalk.
Okay,
So they abutted each other.
that's all I have.
Okay, anyone else have any questions? Thank you. Next on the list of speakers would be Marie and Walter Aylward. Are both of you going to speak, or just one? Are both of you going to speak?
No, just...
Okay. And you are, I imagine, Walter?
Pardon?
Are you Walter?
I'm Walter.
Okay.
I'm also your American Legion commander.
Pardon me?
Pardon? I'm your American Legion commander here, too. Like you said, on Wednesday, February 10th, my wife was at the front door, standing there. I was out at my side gate on the side of my driveway. The two dogs are sisters. They're 5 years old. They were together by the corner of the fence. One panel in, just sitting there. Along comes the pit bull, and she's struggling with him walking. No one barked at anybody. My dogs didn't bark, that dog didn't bark, and the next thing you know, I saw the dog fly and the woman with it right across the sidewalk, right into the chain link fence, and the dog going like that. By the time I got back in the yard and grabbed my dog and was running across the yard, yipping, her face is hanging off. Whole half of her face is off. Teeth and everything, the whole jaw. I said to my wife, get your ass in the car fast. We're going. We wait for nothing. Went down to Plymouth to see Dr. Stillman, our animal doctor. And he said, I can't help you. He's way beyond me. You got to get into Angel. So, let me tell you, I should have got stopped by the cops, but I didn't. It was life-threatening for her. That's exactly what they said when they took her in. They were waiting for us. What do you do when you sit in your car? There's blood everywhere. The other dog had blood on its face. It was my dog's blood. That dog is a danger. He just like that, went across the sidewalk, dragged the woman with him, bing, right into the chain link fence. That dog is dangerous. He's tasted blood. He'll do it again.
Thank you.
That's all I have.
Does anyone have any questions of Walter?
I actually do.
Yeah, Brian? Well, Brian would like to ask you a question.
I'm just curious, I know you said it was a serious injury, and
It was life-threatening is what they said at
how did
Angel.
what was the outcome? How,
If they could get the blood flow, get the jaw all back together and get the blood to flow, should keep the jaw. If not, she's done.
Dad, it might be helpful for you to explain how many surgeries the jaw had to, so Marie had to hold the jaw on the dog on the way to the hospital, and the dog required 3 surgeries and intravenous medication in food for weeks. So
We had to feed her through the tube in her neck.
they didn't know if the dog would make it. It wasn't just a simple injury. This was a life-threatening injury that required weeks and months of rehab.
Could you identify yourself just for...
So
My
Michelle
daughter.
Anderson, I'm the one that called the dog officer.
Okay.
And spoke with doctors and everything. I'm the daughter.
Okay, thank you.
I'm signed it.
and the outcome as of today?
The dog is alive and does have some, issues just...
With her jaw.
With her jaw and eating, and is afraid to be in the front yard. They've lived in that home for 37 years with multiple dogs, never had any incident, have had a chain link fence since like day one. This is the first incident of any kind, and it wasn't anything that had happened before. This was completely out of the blue. It wasn't two dogs attacking at all. It was a dog walking by, and the person walking by was struggling, controlling the dog just from pulling, and they bit through the fence and dislodged the jaw of Buttercup.
And what kind of dog is what?
Shih Tzu,
Shih Tzu. You're talking 10 pounds to 70 pounds.
little dog.
Yes, I've had one.
Pit bulls, that's a good sized dog. It's good sizes. It hits you, you know it. That's a big dog.
I have a question, Carl.
Okay.
And the funniest part of the whole thing is, my dogs never moved. They just stood there and looked at the dog.
Mm-hmm.
And then he charged, bing. And they still didn't move.
I think he has a question.
Oh,
I think we have another question, a follow-up question.
If I may, so your dog was away from the fence, and the pit bull was able to push the fence in forward enough to get at the dog?
there's a dent still in my fence.
I mean, in 1 inch, 2 inches, 6 inches, the fence, is it that much of a fluctuation in the chain link fence?
Maybe as much as 2 inches.
What do you want to see as the outcome to happen to the pit bull?
You know, I really don't want to see the dog go down.
Huh?
I'm not for killing the dog. All right? But that dog is dangerous.
So are you asking us that we should put it down?
No.
What would you want? I couldn't hear you.
Muzzle it.
Nothing? Yeah.
Muzzle.
Oh, muzzle.
Removed from town.
Or remove it from the town, one or the other.
Muzzle while it's walking,
Period.
even in their house?
Yeah, because I think they're going to run into a problem sooner or later. Because that dog just bolted out of the blue. Boom. Didn't require a dog to bark at them and nothing. It just went bang. And he dragged that woman like she was a rag.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you. Are there any speakers in support of Mr. and Mrs. Aylward's position that want to speak now? Okay. Okay, next would be Casey Mahoney. These are some letters. Okay. Okay, thank you. Lincoln, you can have copies of these made.
Please bear with me as I read my statement. Just a little about myself. My name is Casey Mahoney. I have been a citizen of Whitman for close to 10 years and live at 50 Perry Ave. I have been an active member of the Whitman Hanson Dollars for Scholars chapter for the past 8 years and am a board member. And Michael Ganshert has also given you guys a letter about my dog and that she is safe and that I'm a responsible owner. I also volunteer at the Animal Protection Center of Southeastern Mass in Brockton, helping to care for all the shelter animals. Many rescues. Loretta has been with me since the fall of 2014. My ex, his young children, and I adopted her from the MSPCA in Haverhill. In the years we lived together, Loretta has only showed love towards all of us, never aggression. During the first 3 to 4 years with her, Loretta and I would take walks 5 or more times a week, sometimes twice a day. She has always been leashed in my care when we were out in public and collared. When calculated, this totals over 1,500 walks in 6 years without an incident. In October, I started to go back to my work in Boston and needed to find a dog walker for a couple times a week. I found Crystal via the Whitman Pride page on Facebook. She had a few years of experience walking all sizes of dogs. She had been walking Loretta for 3 to 4 months before this incident happened. She bonded with Loretta, and Loretta looked forward to their walks together. During our first meet and greet with Crystal, I asked that due to the pandemic, that when she saw another dog being walked or around, that she safely walk to the other side of the road and either walk further along or wait until they passed before continuing their walk. On February 10th, due to the snow and barrels in the street, she felt it would be safer to stay on the sidewalk, even though the Aylward's dogs were in their yard. From my understanding of the events that transpired, the dogs sniffed each other at the fence briefly, and then Crystal continued the walk. The dogs then continuously barked at the two of them from behind the fence, startling Loretta and having her turn back towards the fence in a non-aggressive manner. But no one actually witnessed what happened because it occurred so quickly and everyone was faced away from the dogs. Other than Mr. Aylward stating that his dog looked injured, Crystal wasn't even aware anything had actually happened. Crystal, in a state of shock, pulled Loretta away from the Aylward's property and quickly walked back to my home. Once there, she checked the Loretta for any signs of injuries or blood and found none. She contacted me shortly after that and told me what happened. To me, it sounded as if neither dog had damage, and I planned to visit the Aylwards the following evening to check in on them and their dogs. But Crystal will speak after and have more on the incident. It wasn't until I first spoke to ACO Kenny that I found out that Buttercup was injured and needed surgery. ACO Kenny assured me that these types of incidents happen with dogs and that Buttercup would recover. But I was still devastated because I care for the Aylward's dogs. On my walks to and from the train station over the years, I have had numerous conversations with the Aylwards and said hello to their dogs. But on many of the walks with Loretta, when their dogs have been outside and even inside, I have avoided walking by their home because of their continuous barking at Loretta and I. This was not because I thought Loretta would become aggressive towards them or vice versa, only that I wanted to have a more peaceful walk. After my first conversation with ACO Kenny, I decided that I would continue to be a responsible owner and start walking Loretta on my own instead of using a dog walker, even though both Loretta and Crystal would miss each other, and that I would shorten my hours in the office until I could find a different solution. This resulted in my finding a pet sitter to come and visit twice a week, Heather Martin, who has also written a statement. I also decided to continue to avoid the Aylwards' home, whether their dogs were outside or inside. After I spoke to ACO Kenny a second time to ask for his advice, since this has never occurred before, I was content to hear that what I had already put in place were some of his suggestions. I was able to briefly visit the Aylwards and apologize for what had occurred and left my information for them to contact me so we could discuss any veterinary bills. They chose to hire an attorney, and this is now in the hands of my insurance company. I am sad about what happened, not only because Buttercup was injured, but also because a relationship was lost between myself and the Aylwards. Almost done. During the past year, most of us have suffered in some way due to this pandemic, myself included. It's been a heartbreaking and sometimes very depressing year. And to be completely honest, Loretta is part of the reason I am still here. I now live alone, which has been a difficult adjustment for both of us, but we have adapted and are stronger. Loretta is my companion and has made me feel safe and loved. She has cuddled up next to me during some of my darkest days, made me laugh, and many of our walks together have helped me to work through my thoughts and emotions. Finally, and I mean this with all my heart, Loretta is not a dangerous dog or a nuisance and should not be perceived this way by anyone who does not know her. She is playful, gentle, and loving, and my neighbors, friends, and family can attest to that. Over the years, she has played with other dogs with no signs of aggression. This was a 1 in a million accident, and she should not be punished by being euthanized or muzzled. Thank you for your time. I do appreciate it. And if you have any questions, I'm willing to answer.
Does anyone have any questions? I just want to make sure I understood what you just said at the end. You don't believe that your dog should be muzzled?
No.
You do believe that your dog should not be muzzled?
I do not believe she
should be muzzled?
She should be muzzled, correct.
Has she been since the incident? Have you had her on a muzzle since the incident?
I have had the muzzle on
You have?
when I have walked her.
Okay. Okay, is that proven to be an issue for the dog? Is it?
Yes.
Does anyone else have any questions? Okay. Is there anyone else that is here to speak on behalf of Casey Mahoney and her dog? Yes. Okay, one at a time.
Thank you.
Thank you, Casey.
Good evening.
And you are?
I am Crystal Power. I am the dog walker.
Okay.
So I'm here to explain what had happened on February 10th, 2021. As you know, it was, so I'm from Bridgewater. I have 2 children and a husband. I have over 3 years of dog walking experience. I am an independent dog walker. I started this to make extra income and to be able to take my children along because it is very hard to find a job and put children into daycare these days. I started walking Loretta in October of 2020. We would walk for 30 minutes every Monday and Wednesday. She has never shown any sign of aggression towards me, nor on our walks. Our route every day, we walk down Perry Ave, we head toward South Ave, we go to Winter, we go to Kendrick. Due to COVID, and for the safety of myself and for the safety of others, I have always walked on the street, not on the sidewalk. This particular day, there was snow on the ground, and there obviously were plows, there were sand trucks. It was also a trash removal day, so there were trash dumpsters coming around as well. So around 11 a.m. we began our normal route. I decided due to the snow, for the safety of Loretta and for myself, we would walk on the sidewalk. There were snowbanks, like small snowbanks on the sidewalk. And obviously dogs like to sniff the snow, so we had little stops here and there. As we were progressing towards Winter Street, we crossed the Aylward's house. Both parties, along with their 2 dogs, were outside in the snow in their chain-link fenced-in yard. As Loretta and I were walking our route, heading to walk past the Aylward's house to Winter Street, both their dogs came to the beginning of the corner of the fence and started barking at Loretta and I. Loretta had stopped, as did I. She then turned her head to the 2 dogs over to the fence to sniff. I saw this. I looked, it was a meet and greet. Loretta turned her head, was not aggressive at all. We then went to continue our walk. However, I can't say that I myself or the Aylwards actually know what happened because they were on the other side, not near their dogs. The dogs were still continuously barking at Loretta and I. She did not aggressively turn her head and barge into their fence. She turned her head back, and I personally feel she felt attacked. She has anxiety issues. I personally feel she felt threatened or upset by these 2 dogs barking at her and myself. I feel that Buttercup was nibbling or biting at Loretta through the chain link fence, and if anything, Loretta could have nibbled back. But there was no way she was able to fully open her mouth to bite the jaw of Buttercup when chain link fences are no more than 2 1/8 inches wide per square, and that is max for residential fencing. I then pulled Loretta away from the situation. I saw Miss Aylward finally walk over to the dogs after I pulled Loretta away. She walked into her house yelling something. Mr. Aylward was then just standing outside holding Buttercup in his arms yelling at me. I walked away from the situation with Loretta in a panic shock as my anxiety becomes very high. I walked Loretta back to Perry Ave on the street side, and I contacted Casey right away to let her know what happened. Not once did Loretta's hair ever stand up, not once did she growl or bark in any manner, and was not aggressive at all, in my opinion, towards the dogs. I will say no one party truly witnessed the incident at hand 100%. The Aylwards did not once come to grab or see why their dogs were barking continuously the first time nor the second time. I analyzed Loretta's face and her mouth. I did not open her mouth. She's a white dog with, I think, brown spots, brindle spots. There was no blood on her face, as I would have been able to tell right away. I even analyzed her back at the house. There was no blood. Never has Loretta nipped or barked at any dogs during the times I have walked her. Anytime, due to COVID, if we saw another person or another dog, I would just walk the other way for the safety of myself and for the safety of others. During our walks, we take the same route every Monday and Wednesday. The two dogs have either been inside or outside and have always barked in their window every time Loretta and I are on the route. She gets anxiety from them barking at her. She will do a whine and try to move along faster. Not once does she bark or growl at them. I had given my report to the animal control officer and the insurance claim rep through Casey, and like she said, this was a 1 in a million accident between two dogs. And I do not believe she should be muzzled or euthanized. She is a caring, kind, sweet, loving animal who is not dangerous.
Okay, thank you. Does anyone have any questions? Of course, we have a dog that's jaw has been completely rearranged.
No, I understand that, and like I said, I walked away from the situation in shock, but also to take us away from whatever was happening. As she stated, I did not know what was happening. All I saw was Mr. Aylward holding the dog and just kind of yelling at me. I did not see him rush to his car. I did not see him rush to his house. But in my personal opinion, that chain link fence could have played a part in some of the damages that Buttercup had. Loretta and I did not charge from the street to their fence. We were on the sidewalk. It was snow, there was snow on the ground.
Okay, thank you. Does anyone have any questions? I think. Oh, okay. We still have some other people that wanted to speak in favor of Casey Mahoney's dog, right? How many do we have? Two more? Two more?
Three more.
Three more. Okay. Okay. Pardon?
She's not a bulldog. I mean a pit bull. She's an American bully dog.
I'm just making sure that the breed is correct.
Okay, what kind of dog is it then?
It's an American bully. I had her DNA.
Okay. Okay.
I just wanted to put it on.
Okay, did you, whoever is taking notes here, did you get that? Okay. I'd like to hear from you first before we get to the others. If you could just...
I understand that the dog walker was there, and I assume she must have seen it if the dog was leashed and she had some kind of control of the dog. However, these dogs are very little and their snouts could go through the fence. These dogs live with this chain link fence. This chain link fence did not hurt this dog, okay? The dog walker yelled at my dad and said, "Look at the blood on the dog. Your dog hurt my dog." My father said, "Your dog hurt my dog," as he's holding her jaw in his hand. So I'm sure it was a very high anxiety moment, but this chain link did not cause this issue. There was definitely a bite or something that caused this issue, and that's why there was blood everywhere.
Okay.
I believe you did say, "Your dog hurt my dog," and neither were you, right? So I'm just...
Oh.
But I was
Okay,
on the
we're
phone.
not
I was on
gonna
the
have-
phone with him as soon as...
We're not going to have a back and forth.
Right, that's not going to be helpful for us to talk to each other. I get that. But in the heat of the moment, what he said to me was exactly what I think happened. That, 5 minutes after it happened, when he called and said they were on their way down to Plymouth, "I'm sorry she didn't see them rush in the car. She was leaving," exactly like she said. She didn't stick around to see where they went. They went to their doctor, then they had to go to Angel Memorial because the doctor couldn't reattach the jaw at his office in Plymouth. So,
Okay. Joe, no, excuse me, sir. Joe, you've spoken to both of the parties, right? After the incident, can you add any color to what we have?
Yeah,
two
so
totally
I
different
spoke
stories.
to both parties, as well as, I think you, after the incident and the dog walker. So unfortunately, I didn't see the dog before it was taken off to the vet. I think immediately after this occurred, the dog was more or less scooped up, put in the car and driven to Plymouth. Once it arrived in Plymouth, the injuries were too substantial for that vet to do. So it went to a VCA, which is a common practice. If something's too serious, a VCA or something like that is usually who handles those. So the dog went immediately there. So I didn't see the dog until actually like 2 days later. So I didn't see the dog because it was in the vet. So I can't really add to the substantial part of
Just checking.
injury, but I'm sure there's vet records one way or the other.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question for Joe. I know your background, and I trust your judgment on this. Based on the injuries that you said you didn't see them, but you've read about it.
Yes.
In your estimation, do you think a pressed chain link fence could do that kind of damage?
So in my experience with this, my guess would be that the larger dog, as well as the smaller dog, were probably barking at each other from one side of the fence to the other side. Can I say that one wasn't? No. But my guess would be that they were both barking at each other, and they both kind of went at each other, which is why the smaller dog's face probably would have come through the bars of the chain link, in which case the larger dog was able to grab the lower jaw and cause the injury. That would be my guess on what happened.
Okay, thanks, Joe. Who's next on that side? Yes. Remember, if we can keep these to 5 minutes, please.
I just made coffee.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
My name is Julie Ryan. The statement that I'm reading is from me and also my husband, Matthew. He could not be here today due to an injury. Okay. We have been neighbors of Casey Mahoney for the past 9.5 years. We live directly across the street from her, so we always see her and her dog, Loretta. We will often see Casey and Loretta sitting on Casey's front porch. Many people walk by, often with their dogs with them. Kids are riding bikes up and down the street. We will often be in our front yard with our own dog. Loretta has never made any attempt to go after any of these dogs. She lays on her porch and she just watches. I have even taken care of Loretta on occasion if Casey is running late from work. I would let her out with my son with me and then bring her back to my house. She has never made any aggressive attempts to go after my cats or dog while in my home. Loretta is a good-natured dog. She always listens to Casey's commands and has never been a problem. When Casey told me about this incident, I recall the dogs and the yard she was referring to on South Avenue. I myself have been startled walking by their home. Their dogs will jump at the fence constantly, barking, and to some, that can seem to be aggressive. I am not by any means condoning what happened, and I do hope that Buttercup fully recovers. But I can understand why Loretta was frightened and probably reacted to the situation. This was a very unfortunate incident, but Loretta is a good dog, and even the thought of her being euthanized or even muzzled because of one incident is horrific. Casey has always been a responsible owner, and Loretta is Casey's whole life. Does anybody have any questions?
Thank you. Does anyone have any questions? That was nicely written and very clear. Thank you.
Thank you.
You doing? I am Brian Mahoney, Casey's brother.
Okay.
I live in Amesbury, Massachusetts. I'm a dog owner myself. I have four children ranging from 5 to 15. My children have all slept at Casey's home with Loretta. Loretta has come to my house. We've gone to her house. My dog has experienced time with Loretta with no incident. The only times I've ever seen Loretta, she's always been caring, loving. I've wrestled with her myself, and I don't even see her all the time. And there's never really been any aggression from her. You know, playful, happy. I'm sure the incident that happened was horrific, but Loretta is a caring and loving dog.
Thank
Any
you.
questions?
Does anyone have any questions? Mr. Mahoney?
Thank you.
And I think I counted one more person that wanted to speak. Is that correct?
Hi, I'm Marty Mahoney, Casey Mahoney's mom, and we have watched, my husband and myself have watched Loretta numerous times. It's vacation house. Our house is vacation land. You know, it's easy, it's quiet. She has a whole backyard that she can run around. We've never seen any type of aggression with her. We do have two children in our neighbors. They come over and play with Loretta in the backyard. There's never been an incident at all. I'm sorry that this happened. I understand. It's very hard. I've had it. My dog was attacked once also, years and years ago, and it's a hard situation, and I'm very sorry that it happened. But this was one awful incident, and I don't think Loretta, with her great personality, should have to be muzzled or, I don't want to even say the other word. This is a one incident. It's awful that it happened. But, you know, Casey's a wonderful dog owner. That dog means a lot to her. The pandemic year of 2020 was awful for everybody. Look how many dogs were adopted. That's something that animals and human beings really got together a lot last year. But I think this was a one-time incident. And again, I'm sorry that it happened. But that's all I have to say. Any questions?
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Anyone have any questions? Okay. I think that's it for testimony, if I'm counting correctly. What we need to do, folks, is to come to some sort of a determination or decision about whether Loretta is a nuisance dog, or a dangerous dog, or neither, and whether any of those are true, whether or not there needs to be some kind of action taken about her. Just time for you all to talk. End it. Figure it out. Yes, Justin.
I would just like to ask if Peter could explain the difference between a dangerous dog and a nuisance dog, or maybe somebody could.
Go ahead, Peter.
So the definitions for dangerous dog and nuisance dog are in state law. Chapter 140, Section 136A defines the two. Lincoln, do we happen to have copies that the members could review of that statute?
Yes, I believe they're in folks' packets, but if not, I'd be happy to get
I believe each one of the
copies.
selectmen has definitions of nuisance and dangerous dogs.
Would you like me to read those, or?
No, I don't think you need to. I think Justin needs to.
have it.
To tell you the truth. Thank you. Let's talk about what should happen with the dog. I've been a dog owner for a long time. Little dogs, and like them much better than cats. But that's a whole other thing. I really feel for the Aylwards to see that happen to their dog, and something obviously very seriously happened on that day. It's heart-wrenching. On the other hand, it was a one-time incident, and my inclination would be, and if you guys agree with this, fine. If not, let's talk it out. My inclination would be not to call Loretta a dangerous dog based upon one incident. And this is, I'm basing a lot of what I'm about to say on the report that Joe Kenny gave, the ACO. I wouldn't call, I wouldn't want to label him as a dangerous dog. I'm not sure he qualifies as a nuisance dog either, if you look at the definition of a nuisance dog. On the other hand, he was involved in an incident that caused a lot of grief. And I'm not sure it's, would be out of the question to suggest or to determine that when he is outside of his own property, that he be muzzled on a leash. That she, I guess, Loretta, that she be muzzled on a leash. I'm not sure that's something that's out of line. I'd like to hear what other people have to say about that. I don't think at any point is anyone thinking about euthanizing the dog, but I'm not sure that it's unreasonable to have the dog muzzled when it's out taking a walk, when it's not on its own property. And that's my take, and I'd like to see what other people think. Brian.
If I may, okay. Listening to the dog owner, the owner of the dog who was bitten, seriously injured, and that's a shame. I mean, I owned a dog for 17 years, a golden retriever, but that was many years ago. I had to put her down, and now I'm a cat person. Sorry. Anyways, and I know that when I had my dog, and if somebody came to the door and my dog was in the house, he would start barking. It's almost, right? And I've gone to many people's homes that have a dog, whether it's a large dog or a small dog. You knock on the door, they start barking. It's almost like a new doorbell. So dogs are very protective of their property. And it's been stated that the two dogs that were in the fenced-in yard weren't barking, weren't doing anything, and I find that hard to believe that if somebody's walking by, those dogs don't run to the edge of their property because of being protective of their property. And I think it's a shame that, that the dog walker walking the dog, and it had a very small area to walk because of the snow and the sidewalk, and it was very close to the fence. And I think the two dogs that were barking, even though the owner said they weren't, but the dog walker, who was right there walking the dog, said it was. Other owners have said, other neighbors have said, yes, they've walked by and the dogs have barked. They're protecting their property. That's what dogs do. So to say that the dogs are just in the backyard, went up to the fence to say hi, and the dog bit them, I don't see that. I think that I agree with our ACO officer that maybe a different route and a different dog walker or a stronger dog walker should be walking the dog. I'm not really convinced because it's the very first time, and I think that those two dogs protecting their property, it's just something that dogs do, that the dog needs to be muzzled while walking unless there is another incident. This is a single incident. And if this dog has been, the dog has another incident, then we may reconsider that. Or our ACO officer will give him permission to turn around and say, if there's a second incident of this dog doing something, then maybe we'll go with that. But right now, it's the first thing. I think the two dogs were protecting their property. The other dog, being walked by a walker, was walking close to the fence, and dogs do what they do. That's how I feel.
Okay, thank you. Randy, you had something to say.
I just have a question for Peter. A question for Peter, if possible. By 140 and the facts you've heard this evening, do you believe the dog meets the definition of a dangerous dog?
Under the definition of Chapter 140, Section 136A?
Yes.
Well, it's not really appropriate for me to make that judgment, but I will say I can explain to you how I would analyze it, if that's helpful. The dangerous dog definition, what we're talking about here is whether or not one dog attacked another dog. And so you're able to narrow down what you're looking at there. The dangerous dog definition is a dog that, in this case, without justification, attacks a domestic animal causing physical injury. A nuisance dog would be a dog that has attacked a domestic animal, but such threat or attack was not a grossly disproportionate reaction under all the circumstances. An attack is defined as aggressive physical contact initiated by an animal. So I think that those are really the standards that you're looking at here to determine was this an attack as defined by the statute? If so, does it fall under either the nuisance or dangerous dog definition? And I will note a couple things that are contained in, so the definitions are contained in section 136A. Section 157 is the statute that governs procedure and the options. Once a determination has been made that a dog is or is not a nuisance or dangerous dog, there are specific exceptions, which I trust you have before you, where a dog cannot be deemed dangerous. And there are also specific options for remedies that are contained in the statute depending on whether the dog is deemed a nuisance, dangerous, or neither. And contained within that statute after the potential remedies for a dangerous dog, so this is right after subsection C, is a provision that I think is relevant to some of the points that have been raised up tonight, so I want to raise it for you. It's no order shall be issued directing that a dog deemed dangerous shall be removed from the town or city in which the owner of the dog resides. No city or town shall regulate dogs in a manner that is specific to breed. That regulation would apply generally and to specific instances. Do you have any other questions?
Just regarding the muzzle, so would we have to deem the dog dangerous to apply a muzzle statute?
No.
Not necessarily. The nuisance provisions provides that the hearing authority, which is the board, may further order that the owner of the owner or keeper of the dog take remedial action to ameliorate the cause of the nuisance behavior. If you deem that a muzzle is an appropriate remedial action to ameliorate that behavior, it would be appropriate. It's a more flexible standard. The dangerous dog statute includes a muzzling provision, but the dangerous dog statute specifically says that if you deem a dog dangerous, you shall provide one of these remedies, and the remedies are specifically included. In my opinion, for a nuisance dog, because it's a lower standard to meet, you wouldn't be able to fashion a remedy that goes above and beyond any of the remedies that are included within the dangerous dog provisions.
Okay. Thank you.
Brian.
Pete, I do have a question quickly. I really couldn't hear him down there, so I don't know if he might have asked this, but now that we know what has happened, and what Dan says is his opinion was if we get another incident, are we as the town liable because we have known about the first incident and we waited for a second? Does the town become liable in that whole scenario?
I don't believe so.
Pardon me?
I do not believe so.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Chairman, if you will continue. Sorry.
I will follow up with you if I learn
go ahead,
differently. No, if I learn differently, I'll follow up.
I'm good. Thank you. Appreciate it. What your mother said was this is a one-time incident, and I believe it has to be a one-time incident. This can never happen again. I am an animal advocate, as many of you know, anyway. And I believe that, I believe in second chances. However, I've had a Shih Tzu. I understand their demeanor. I currently have a Maltese, another very similar breed, and they do exactly what Dan says. They're going to protect their territory. That being said, though, I really believe that we need to make sure this does not happen again. I absolutely refuse, I would never vote except under extreme circumstances about euthanasia at all. To me, it's horrific to be going down that road. However, seeing, hearing actually what has happened really struck me. And I can't imagine you going through that. And I believe we cannot let this happen again. So with euthanasia, in my estimation, out of the scenario, we have to protect the citizens of this community. And all along I've said this, that the taxpayers and the citizens are the utmost treasure we have in this town. And by taking care of an incident like this, we do that. And I feel for you, and I hope your dog gets better. I believe that what the ACO has suggested is a great option. Other routes, different neighborhoods, anything that can prevent this, but what's to say 3 streets down, there's another Buttercup? And that's my fear. So I might suggest to this board that while you're walking the dog, a muzzle would be probably the best option to keep everyone safe. I don't believe you should have to have your muzzle on your dog on your property. I just don't think that's necessary. But I do believe in public, to make sure that this is a one-time thing, that's what I would suggest.
Do you want to recommend that, Brian, for the board to consider as a...
Do you have anything, Justin, you
If
want
I,
to say?
yeah, if I could
We'll let Justin speak.
Justin?
first. I'm also a dog owner. I live on Candlewick Lane, so I walk by both of your houses regularly. I'm familiar with both dogs involved, although I don't know that I could distinguish Buttercup from her sister. So I'm very sorry to hear that this has happened to Buttercup. A little bit about my experience with the demeanor of both dogs, if that may interest the board. The Aylward's dogs do generally bark as we're walking by. It's pretty routine. Get up to the fence, bark. It never seemed like they're, nothing, no dangerous intent, but they are yippy, I guess, as Dan said. And they're regularly outside. I see them almost all the time. Loretta, I've seen on at least a dozen occasions, lying on her, front steps. Maybe once or twice has barked as I've walked by. So I think that the personal accounts of Loretta have been, at least from my experience, have seemed accurate. With that said, I think Dan had a good point, that this obviously can't happen again, but I don't know that even deeming it a nuisance dog or requiring a muzzle, given one incidence of what seems like if not calling it an accident, a provoked bite, with Buttercup's head is the only one that could fit through the fence, not Loretta's. So I think I would support Dan's recommendation of, a warning.
Anyone else?
Mr. Chairman, I might just want to add one thing that semi-related. When the pandemic hit, everybody was stuck at home, and a lot of folks, to keep their kids entertained and occupied, went and got a puppy. And now the shelters are filling up with puppies that aren't quite puppies anymore, because people now are done with them and they're sending them to shelters. And in my estimation, all animals are precious, and when they get taken into a family, they become part of the family. So I feel for both sides here, but I do believe that we have to make some steps to protect the citizens from anything happening. Animals are animals. They know that they have to protect themselves and their owners, so we have to step in and make the right decision.
Any comment on that?
Sure.
Okay. Would you consider changing your motion?
I actually haven't made a motion.
Oh, you haven't made a motion?
Haven't made a
I thought you did. All right. For temporary. In other words, when you're walking the dog for the next 6 months, we'll say, wears a muzzle. And if there is no other incident, then ACO officer can check in on you and see how things are going, and if there's no other incidents or no other reports to us, then maybe we can take the muzzle off and hold that.
May I speak? Is that okay?
Yes, go ahead.
It's already been 4 months, and she has worn the muzzle.
Oh, she's already worn, she's on it?
She's, yes.
How does she deal with it?
She doesn't like it. And to be honest, when I do walk her, which is normally early morning, I am the only one who walks her now. No one else will be walking her. Like I said, I have walked her for 6.5 years, over 1,500 walks throughout the whole town, all the way down from Perry Ave, all the way down to the park and back. We have taken long walks, we have taken short walks, 10-mile walks. So when I have her out there at 5:36 in the morning, when there's hardly anyone else around, or at 9 o'clock at night, which is when I do walk her now. Those are the only times I will be walking her.
And there's been no incidents?
And there's been no incidents.
Well, there've been no incidents because she's on a muzzle.
Right, but the fact is, the dog on a muzzle can still go after another dog. It just can't bite it.
She wasn't with me when this happened.
Right.
I'm hoping you can understand that. Now, I'm not saying Crystal is at fault here either. This was an absolutely horrific incident that happened. And I really do care for their dogs, because I have walked by them many times. But this was a one-time incident. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I would, you entertain a motion?
Yes.
Okay. I tend to agree with what Dan said about compromise and Justin's information as well. I'd like to make a motion that we go with a period of time as Dan suggested. Maybe, since you said there was 4 months, maybe we go, we're in June now, so maybe we go till September with the muzzle and then have Joe revisit the whole scenario after Labor Day. And so muzzle till then, and then revisit it in September.
Peter.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, thank you. I just wanted to make a procedural note. In order to issue any type of requirement, if that's a motion that's going to be made, and I'm not suggesting any motions for the board to make, but you should first determine whether or not the dog is a nuisance or dangerous dog.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear what you said at the end.
You should first make a finding as to whether the dog is a
Right.
nuisance dog, a dangerous dog, or
The dog
neither.
has been complained about as a dangerous dog, so we have to either dismiss that complaint, accept that complaint, or suggest that the dog is a nuisance dog,
Yes,
correct?
yes.
I
And
think
then
we have to do that first.
if you make a determination that the dog is a nuisance dog or a dangerous dog, then you can fashion a remedy.
Right.
Thank you.
Yeah, my problem with this is I don't see the dog as a dangerous dog, although it did something very dangerous once to another dog. It did, and we can't get by that. On the other hand, I can't define it as a nuisance dog either, because it doesn't seem to fit the definition of a nuisance dog. And on the other hand, we have Buttercup. So I'm wondering, Peter, if we were to dismiss the complaint is specifically that the dog is a dangerous dog. We were to dismiss that complaint, but would we still be able to do something like what Brian is suggesting or Dan is suggesting, and having a period of time in which the dog has paid particular attention to, or has had, or does continue to wear a muzzle for a while? I think something has to be done to recognize what has happened, even if it's only once.
I believe your statutory authority to order a remedy comes from a finding that the dog is either a nuisance dog or a dangerous dog.
Okay, so we'd have to say one or the other.
If the complaint is dismissed, I don't believe you have statutory authority to order the action contained in the statute.
Okay, so that's the...
One question. Does our ACO officers have that authority? To consider that and order a person to muzzle the dog?
You can speak right after me, especially if I'm wrong. But I believe the ACO's authority is temporary, and that time period has passed. The ACO's has authority to basically fashion stopgap measures until a hearing can be had before the hearing authority. Does that sound right?
So you say he has the authority?
He no longer has that authority.
He no longer.
The time has expired.
Okay. Time has expired from the time of the incident. That's...
Time has expired.
Yes.
Just going back to that original question over 140 that I asked Peter, this is kind of where, as I read through this, I think clearly, I don't think the Mahoney's dog meets a dangerous dog definition by Mass General
I
law.
agree with you.
Possibly, and again, how we're perceiving the facts as presented, we fall into the nuisance category.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess since you all told your stories about dogs, I will tell mine now. I don't currently own a dog, but I grew up in Whitman. We bought a dog when I was 8. He died when I was 23. So needless to say, I love that dog. However, there was one night where that dog, Henry was his name, I got in his face and Henry clamped down on my lip. And to this day, I have the scar of the 12 stitches in my lip. The dog wasn't dangerous. Heck, we kept him around another 10 years after that. But there was an incident where on that day, an animal was an animal. And I don't think my parents particularly cared to taking me to the emergency room that night, and I was small and getting stitches, but nobody in the family lost love for the dog or really a lot of trust in our dog. And it proved to be a great dog for many years after. Incidents with animals happen. We see that, and they're unfortunate, and I think this board right now is wrestling probably with the fact that we have one party that their life was turned upside down, that you have an animal that you're in love with and it sustained an injury. I don't know if we can blame another party for that because they are animals. And clearly, there was one time where you all kind of got along, and these animals probably saw each other on a daily, nightly, morning basis, but this one day, something went wrong. And is it just that? And that's what I'm wrestling with right now. And going back to the law, I don't know if, by the way the facts to me are presented this evening, I would be willing to call a nuisance or a dangerous dog.
Right. The specific complaint in the letter that was written by the Aylwards was to have a hearing of a dangerous dog hearing for the dog. And so I think, simply put, our decision is whether or not to dismiss the complaint that it was a dangerous dog. Randy is suggesting maybe that we could lower it to nuisance dog, correct? Am I understanding you?
I think at that point, it's going to be how the board perceives the facts.
Peter?
Just want to make sure it's clear. The statute provides that the hearing authority shall, if the dog is complained of as a dangerous dog, and that's the situation we have here. A, dismiss the complaint. B, deem the dog a nuisance dog. Or C, deem the dog a dangerous dog. So you do...
Wait, it dismissed the charge.
You may dismiss
We may dismiss it, or what were the other?
deem the dog a nuisance dog, or deem the dog a dangerous dog.
Deem the dog a nuisance dog.
So
right?
you have the
We-
spectrum of options available to you.
Right, that's what I thought I read too. And Randy, I think, is suggesting that we deem the dog a nuisance dog, no?
I don't know if
All that would allow us to do, what that would allow us to do is to place some conditions on what happens to the dog next, whether it wears a muzzle or not, I think. Correct, Peter? Otherwise, there's no need to do that. Okay, right. But I thought you just said that there's three things we can do, A, B, and C.
So,
one is to dismiss.
If you dismiss, your first option is to dismiss the complaint.
One alternative, and I'm trying to find it on here, but I can't find it. The one alternative is to dismiss the charge.
May I?
Yeah, please. You may approach the bench. Thanks. Right.
All right, so it's in section...
Now, if the dog is complained of as a dangerous dog, which it was, we can A, dismiss the complaint, B, deem the dog a nuisance dog, or C, deem the dog a dangerous dog.
Yes, and
We have
then...
Those are the three things we can do.
And if you make a determination that
And
the
if
dog...
we determine that the dog is a nuisance dog, we can further order the owner or keeper of the dog to take remedial action to ameliorate the cause of the behavior.
Yes.
And that action would be something like wearing a muzzle.
Could be.
Could be. All right, or walking in different areas or something.
Yes.
It actually could be adopting what the ACO had suggested back in March.
Yes, if that's your decision.
Right. So, now, is that clear? We can do one of three things. We can dismiss the complaint, or we can deem the dog a nuisance dog, or we can deem the dog a dangerous dog. We can do.
Does the dog meet the criteria of nuisance or dangerous?
Well, I think we're telling you that we don't believe that the dog is a dangerous dog. I think we're saying that.
But the definition of a nuisance.
Pardon?
The definition of a nuisance dog.
Definition of a nuisance dog is a pain in the neck dog to other dogs. Can you read that definition?
So first you have to understand the definition of attack. Aggressive physical contact initiated by an animal. So the question is, was there aggressive physical contact? So obviously there's an animal. The definition of a nuisance dog is a dog that by excessive barking or other disturbance is a source of annoyance to a sick person residing in the vicinity. 2, by excessive barking, causing damage or other interference, a reasonable person would find such behavior disruptive to one's quiet and peaceful enjoyment. Or 3, has threatened or attacked livestock, a domestic animal, or a person, but such threat or attack was not a grossly disproportionate reaction under all the circumstances.
Yeah, and I think what happened here probably fits the third thing that you read. Talked about an attack. Correct? The last thing that you read just now, Peter.
The last thing I read was a dog that has threatened or attacked livestock, a domestic animal, or a person, but such threat or attack was not a grossly disproportionate reaction under all the circumstances.
Right. Doesn't that sound like what happened? I don't know. I'm asking you for an opinion. Doesn't that sound like what happened?
In my opinion, I mean, I could support that finding.
You do or don't?
I could defend that finding.
You could defend that?
Yes.
That's what I thought you said. And that's what I'm feeling too. And that's under the definition of a nuisance dog. This hearing could end with our determining that the dog is a nuisance dog because of that. And then... Pardon?
From that definition.
Yeah. We'll make, you know something, we'll make this determination, sir. Yeah, I know you are. And we're at C too. And I'm not getting a lot of help right here. Brian.
Under what the gentleman just said, that would be a separate complaint.
Yes. You could not make that finding in this hearing.
Right.
You could not make a finding with regard to the Aylward's dogs in this hearing.
I'm sorry.
There's no complaint regarding the Aylward's dogs
Yeah.
that's before you, and so you could not make any finding regarding them at this hearing.
Okay.
In answer to his question.
I still didn't hear what you said.
The suggestion that Aylward's dog could have been a nuisance, there's no complaint. so we can't-
Right. We don't have a complaint about the Aylward's dog.
Correct.
Right.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
I just think that given the situation as it's laid out, I'm not sure that we could define Loretta as a nuisance because I'm not sure that the attack was grossly disproportionate. If it was a...
Grossly disproportionate, it lost its jaw.
With the other dogs likely having provoked it. It was obviously a terrible incident, but I think I would lean toward dismissing the complaint, having had 4 months muzzled already.
Okay, I'm not going to push it. If you want, someone want to make that motion?
Mr. Chair, may I clarify?
Yes.
Section 3 says that, and I'm just going to simplify, skip a few words, has attacked a domestic animal, but such attack was not a grossly disproportionate reaction under all the circumstances. So if you find that the attack was not grossly disproportionate, then it would fall within the definition
The
of a
difference
nuisance
between dangerous
dog.
and nuisance is what I'm... Okay.
Yes.
Never mind. Thank you, Peter.
Okay, does anyone want to tie this up? Anyone want to make a motion that we can vote on?
Yeah, you want to make it?
Sure, I'll make the motion that we dismiss this, we dismiss this case as nothing. Is it not a dangerous dog, not a nuisance dog?
Okay.
I'll second that.
Is there a second to that?
I'll second that.
Is there any further discussion of that? Okay. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye, or raise your hand.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. All those opposed?
Aye.
Okay, so 3-2. Cases, the complaint is dismissed.
3-2? That's nothing to comment.
Okay, I thank you. Thank you for your patience and your attendance tonight. It's not an easy night, not an easy issue to deal with. The last item on the agenda is to go into executive session.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Selectmen. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. Executive session in accordance with Mass General Law, Chapter 38, Section 21A, Exception 2, to conduct strategy sessions in preparation for negotiations with non-union personnel.
So moved.
Second.
Okay,
Yes.
voice vote, roll call vote?
Yes.
Yes. We will return in open session only to adjourn.
Want to go upstairs or no?